quality over quantity.
Okay, so we're recording, so whenever you're ready.
Okay. All right. Thanks everyone for joining us. We're going to be talking about cybersecurity ABCs for small businesses and medium. I tried to put a lot of thought into what to present today to make it more palatable to general business as opposed to the technology side of general business. And I also put a lot more verbiage on the slides than I normally do so that they can be used as references since I won't be there talking to them if you guys pull up this deck at a later date. So that being said, my name is John Andrews. I'm the CEO of Citadel6 Cybersecurity here in Longview, Texas. I started out in the Marine Corps, then did some work for the Department of Defense. I was an IT forensics consultant, and then I've been in IT security and technology leadership for over 30 years. We have a SOC that's operating here out of Longview, and we do mostly endpoint MDR. So, and you'll find out a little bit later. If you're not familiar with what MDR is, I'll certainly let you know. Anyway, that being said, I'm pleased to be here, and we have a passion for protection, as we like to say. We have a big heart for small and medium-sized businesses. We started the company, last year, primarily because we could see what's going on in the threat landscape globally. Small and medium-sized businesses are kind of collateral damage in this global war that's going on as far as cybersecurity goes. And a lot of the tools and expertise that are necessary to properly defend themselves aren't inexpensive, to say the least. And so small businesses and medium-sized businesses, they have challenges, properly defending themselves. So, that's why we started up. We want to make cutting-edge technology and cutting-edge professional expertise affordable for the small and medium-sized business. So, that being said, again, this is geared towards the business owners. What do you need to know about cybersecurity? And I want to be really real about the threat landscape right now. The threat to business is real and concrete, whether we like to acknowledge it or not. I've got a stack of Wall Street Journal and Longview newspapers from all over the world here, just clipping after clipping of concrete occurrences. And it's amazing how we like to, and when I say we, the primarily the American small business owners like to close our eyes sometimes and put our hands over our ears. It's because we don't like to hear some of the messages. But this is something that's very important. Bad actors are more active today than they ever have been. They have more attack vectors than they ever had. They have better tools that require less expertise to run. And the tech expertise and defensive tools necessary to stay safe are more expensive than ever. So even the best companies that are doing all the right things are experiencing breaches. I don't know if you guys are following the news, but Dish Networks has since last Thursday that it looks like a ransomware event. I'm not sure if they've admitted that or not, but they're having a cybersecurity event that they have numerous global systems down. So, think of the size of that company and the cybersecurity budget that you can imagine that they have, and they're still, suffering. So, I certainly don't ever like to scare people, but I do like to present real factual, this is what's happening and we can't ignore it kind of information. So, and one thing about the format of today's discussion, you can stop me at any time, raise your hand. I'm happy to stop and chase a small rabbit with you if you'd like. All right. So, real quick, here's some of the known breaches from 2020 to 2022, and some of the sizes of them. There are some really good websites out there that really capture this type of data, and we'll discuss a little bit further on about the impact of some of these, like for example, Facebook. Well, if you're on Facebook, your data may have been exposed in Canva and Microsoft. So it's hard to know if your data was exposed in these things. And if it was, it increases your risk in your business. And we'll discuss that. But anyway, I thought it was important to show you the scope and the scale of some of these penetrations and how it might be affecting you. And I know if you haven't been to Thailand or Shanghai, I know some of those are meaningless, but there are some up there that really should make you a little nervous. So many attack methodologies are focused on volume. Lots of folks don't really realize this. They say, I have a medical practice, or all I do is wash cars or whatever. The attackers, for some of their types of attacks, they don't know anything about you. They know an IP address that is part of a script that they run against millions, and if they're able to run this script, and then if it comes back that they're able to penetrate one level of the epidermis, or one level in, then they collect all of those successful scripts, and then they run a more detailed script against it. So it's a numbers game. So don't think just because you're a small business owner, you do marketing, you do other things, that you're not going to be part of an attack like this. And the same thing goes with emails. They send out millions of emails. All they're hunting for are those 10 people that are going to click out of that million, because it's going to pay off. So what my objective always is with my customers is to make sure that they're not one of those 10, right? If we can give them best practices, if we can give them a mirror surface to reflect off these attacks, then that's going to benefit everybody. My nature is not one that suffers attacks on the U.S. very easily, and that's what this feels like to me, and always has. So anyway, this is important. That I can't count the number of folks, small business owners, especially on the medical side, that really don't think they're targets. And I tell them the same thing, that the guy I was on a breach council call with last week with the FBI, he didn't think he was a target either, right? So I don't like to scare people, but I do want you to understand that these are real threats. So here's some of the motivations. I'm not going to go too depth here, but there's folks out there that are doing it for money. They're doing it because they're let's see if I cans. They're doing it for ideological purposes that are just trying to damage, let's say, infrastructure, or finance, or scaring people by hacking into the medical industry. So just bear in mind that there's a variety of reasons they do this, but at the end of the day, to me, it doesn't matter if you're a bad actor and you're attacking. It's up to us to defend it. I do want to just mention that there's I'm focusing a little bit on business here, but a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about, as an individual, little red guy with his hand up, you can take this into your personal life as well. And to me, and I've always taught my daughter this, situational awareness is key. no matter where you are or what you're doing, and that translates directly into cybersecurity. So remember, this is the ABCs. Awareness. First step is to be aware of your risk. What are the most common attack vectors? What can you do for practical defense? This is what I'm going to talk about is by no means an all-inclusive list. I've really shortened this up. Last month we had a really good presentation from a little bit more of a deeper dive on the business technology side of this. I'm trying to hit the low-hanging fruit that could be quickly implemented without a whole lot of IT assistance, either internal or external. Because a gram of medicine is better than no medicine. So, all right. So we're going to discuss passwords, multi-factor authentication, updates, endpoint protection, email, social media, mobile devices, and backups. Okay, these are just the ones that we're going to hit. There's a lot more out there. So passwords. So this is something that everybody can do, personal or business. It doesn't matter if your organization has a requirement that you have to have 8 characters or all this. It's unlikely that they're going to block you from having a 16-character password. So recommendations across the board that I've seen are use passphrases, but you don't want to make them too complicated or complicated enough where you can't remember them, right? So I give you one here. I love my work, right? Do something unexpected, misspell something, because the data dictionaries that these hackers that normally use, that brute force, that they don't misspell things in dictionaries. But if you do, it's just that much harder. And a lot of times, if you're that harder, it's not worth their time to continue, right? And that's what we want them to do. We want them to reflect off and pass on to the next target, right? So, and just here's some statistics. All my statistics either are coming from NIST or FBI or NSA, or a couple of them come from the Verizon security team. Anyway, so 81% of breaches are caused by stolen or weak passwords, right? So the key word there are breaches, not penetrations, the breaches are the ones that actually expose data. So it's important to it's important difference, let's say. And then 61% of employees use the same password for other apps. So if you have the same password at work that you do for your bank and that you do for Facebook, let me remind you that Facebook, had this breach. So if they got your Facebook password and they buy your data on the dark web, they now have your password for the others that you have in common, let's say. So that's the first one that they're going to use. That make sense? Okay. All right. Okay. So here's a couple of tables I found. I didn't want to recreate them, but the one on the left is 2021, how long it takes to brute force a password based on length and complexity. So if you'll notice, 2021, it took about an hour if you have lowercase letters and 10 digits. Well, it takes 4 minutes in 2022. So as technology gets better as far as the hardware goes and GPUs and the specialized types of equipment and software that the bad actors are using, these numbers are going to continue to go down. So complexity has to go up, or you're just going to be asking for trouble. Now, there are things that we can do from an IT perspective that can assist with repelling brute force attacks. But what I'm talking about are simple things that the business owners can do in regards to something that's in their control and they don't have to get with IT for. So this is what I mentioned. If your password is the same as the one that was on Facebook, these guys are smart. They're going to correlate, the J Andrews on Facebook with J Andrews at, let's say, Walmart or my bank or whatever. They will make these correlations, especially if the geographics is in your Facebook. I live in Longview, Texas. Well, that's great. Well, this guy that logs into this bank, his username, is John Andrews, and he lives in Longview. So I bet that they'll try these things and they'll try permutations of those passwords. So just bear in mind that if there are data breaches and you may be part of those data breaches, that you just don't know about it. So anyway, that's my password spiel. Passwords are important. And it's one of the easiest things that we can control. We don't need a whole lot of technological expertise to do it, but what we do need to do is make an intentional effort to close that door. Okay. All right. MFA, multi-factor is great. Everybody should be aware of what multi-factor is. But basically, it's involving 2 out of 3 things. It's something you have, something you know, or something you are. Could be any combination of the 2. Sometimes recently I've seen one that used all 3. MFA is hard but not impossible to bypass, but it slows them down enough that if you're using MFA, you're not going to be an easy target. They want easy. They're trying to get as many positive results as possible whenever they're doing some of these attacks. So MFA is never a bad idea. We all have cell phones. Like mine is a leash attached to my neck. So just keep that in mind. There's some good statistics down here. And some of these are estimates from like the 80% of security breaches could be prevented. That estimate comes from the FBI. 43% of companies do not use MFA, but 32% of companies that don't have MFA are adding it in 2023. I suspect that number is going to be higher because MFA is mature and it is a good solution. System updates. This is something that a lot of people just don't really realize how important this is. I know IT teams do, but from a business owner's perspective, if you have computers at home, or I just talked to a guy in oil and gas last week. He has one computer for his office manager that has all their billing and all of their customer information, everything on that computer. And I was like, well, who handles your IT? And he's like, well, I just bought one and we downloaded this program and it's working. It's like, well, are you updating that computer? What's the protection on it? And really, he's an oil and gas guy. He's not an IT guy. And so, I highly encouraged him, enable updates and get endpoint protection on that thing as quickly as you possibly can, because if ransomware gets on that and encrypts it, you're out of business, from what he was telling me. So system updates, very important. Updates fix bugs and security holes. Okay. So we're all adults here. 40% of adults don't always upgrade when they're prompted. 25% need to be prompted more than once, and 75% of adults don't understand the value of the updates. So this is something that you can turn on. You can, whatever your operating system is, you can Google, how do I turn on updates for Windows 10 or whatever you have, and it will walk you through it. You don't necessarily need an IT person to do it. Although, as an IT person that runs a cybersecurity company, would be happy to help you, but I'm really more concerned about general protection than I am about, getting into your businesses. Okay, endpoints. This is super. This is one of my big ones here. Okay, you need to have a reputable anti-malware, antivirus software at a minimum. Okay. The days that you were protected with the free software, like, the Bitdefenders and all this that they're offering, that was fantastic that they do that. And, if that's the only thing you can do, then do it. But this stuff isn't that expensive. All right. Next generation antivirus is a step up from those free ones. Well, there's a step in between there, but I don't like to talk about them. And then there's EDR and MDR. Okay. So Citadel6, we are an MDR provider. We have managed detection and response. We will put software on endpoints, and we're able to at our SOC actually work with our AI software and respond in real time to real threats. Okay, this is this is the best thing out there. You guys very unlikely to use XDR, which I didn't really mention here, but that really will protect you in the cloud if you have services or servers in the cloud. But anyway, so EDR software deployed, and to me, it's a negligible pricing difference to have someone monitoring and managing that for you, as opposed to you just sticking it out there. So anyway, some stats down here. You have an 83% better chance to detect and respond to bad actors. And then you also have a 78% reduction in business impact if you have EDR and MDR deployed. So, all right. Things small businesses can do with minimal IT expertise, email edition. Okay. Email, no business that I'm aware of can operate without email these days. So, be extremely conscious of unsolicited, unexpected, or unusual emails you receive. Enable spam filtering. This is important because it will help you reduce the volume of possible malware phishing attempts that you receive. Okay. It won't cut them out, but it will help you reduce the volume so that you can really be aware and be thoughtful and intentional about how you respond. Okay. And pay very close to the attention, close attention to the sender's from information, validate the user and domain. Worked with a company last month that one of their customers was contacted, their accounts payable team, with new AHT instructions. It came from a domain with the correct person who was responsible at this other company. It came from, let's say it was, Bob Jones. It was B Jones at sassafras.com. Okay, it came from sassafras.com, except only one S, right? Very easy to overlook that. Well, thankfully, this other company that received these new AHT instructions called, and that's how they found out. Otherwise, they could have just changed the AHT, and the next payment would have gone into this other person's account. So, a lot, and they had to spend money on a new domain for that. So these guys will invest, small amounts of dollars to try and get your big amounts of dollars. So, just pay attention and be aware. My general rule that I tell everyone: if you're dealing with financial requests, any type of authorization or deal, call. It won't hurt. It'll even improve the relationship you have with that other person or that other company, because they know that you're being careful, and who knows, maybe you'll get a sale out of it, right? So anyway, adopt a zero trust attitude, no clicky. So just like the Emperor's New Groove, no touchy. Anyway, some numbers. 2022. I'm sorry, this is 2021 and half of 2022. $43 billion in losses or due to email compromise. And this is the #1 attack vector. So this is a gateway. They're not actually, hacking you through this, but it's giving them a gateway into your systems so that they can set up other mechanisms inside your networks. So social media, this is something that a lot of folks don't really consider as being a risk, but it is. I was in a meeting last week in Dallas with totally unrelated, no cybersecurity to this meeting, and all of the senior executives, there's like 16 in there, no one was on social media. And I was like, wow, that's really impressive, because they're very much aware of the information that can be mined from that. So all information can be used by bad actors. Think before you post. Be careful when you're answering harmless looking surveys. I've seen these surveys. I've had these surveys forwarded to me on Facebook. What's your, let's all say what our pet's first name, our first pet's name was, right? Hey, I was born in Austin. Where were you born? Things like this that they don't need to know. Your circle needs to know. So set your accounts to private if possible to limit who can see your posts and information. That should be your circle. I mean, if they're literally friends of yours, then they should be able to see, and hopefully you can trust them not to hack, unless you're Catherine, right? Be careful of business social media accounts such as LinkedIn. So we were able to find out. Remember, I used that AHT example earlier. The information that these bad actors used came from LinkedIn. They were able to find out who the accounts payable person was at that company, so they knew who to target that phishing, that spear phishing to, with that AHT request. They also knew that the person responsible for billing at the other company, which they falsified, I guess there's a term for it. But anyway, they falsified their domain at J. Andrews, because J. Andrews was the billing person. So the names were right, the logos were right, the forms were right, the domain was a little bit off, and they called. That is the type of things, and I know here in the Longview area of at least 2 companies that lost money last year because of a very, very similar incident. So don't think this is happening. It's working. So use strong, diverse passwords in case Facebook gets hacked again. Okay. So mobile devices, lots of folks don't think about this much, but your mobile device has a lot of information about you on it. And for some of us that use it for work, has a lot of work information. So if you can help it, don't connect to unknown public Wi-Fi. If you have to, use a VPN. I'm not really going to mention VPN much because sometimes that can get a little bit technical. I kind of wanted to stay away from that, but we can certainly discuss it if you have any questions. Use strong lock screen pins and passwords, 6 digits if possible. Set a maximum attempt threshold. All smartphones you're able to set at a maximum attempt threshold. You might have to Google how to do it, but this says if somebody tries to log onto my phone more than 10 times, they can't. I mean, it just you won't be able to use it. Sometimes and there's different settings for this, but each time they attempt, the time between attempts gets longer. So anyway, it just makes it harder if somebody gets their hands on your phone for them to use it, or you use it against you. And then the device should auto lock. That's something that I have set up on iPads and everything I own. Auto locks. So if I lay it down for 5 minutes, it's going to be locked if somebody picks it up. So again, these are all best practices that are just to keep you safe. slight inconvenience, but I'd rather have a slight inconvenience than lose data. Always keep your device updated. Don't have sensitive conversations through your mobile device. And I put that on there strictly because lots of folks like to use SMS texting. Now, if you have like WhatsApp has end-to-end encryption. So that application, technically could be used, but I try very hard to encourage people not to put sensitive information on anything. Well, number one, that keeps a log of that conversation, either verbal or in text. So, and just like email, don't open unknown texts or attachments or follow unknown links that are delivered through SMS. There are lots of SMS phishing attempts these days. I received 2 today. Both of them were about my Amazon account has been suspended. Okay, so always go to Amazon and log in and see if there's anything. Never follow those links. And same thing if it comes from your bank. If you get hey, this is First Bank and Trust. We need you to validate that this is your phone, John. Follow this link. No, right? Call the bank. If they really want you to do that, you can do it on the phone. All right. But one thing I do also want to mention, if there's a phone number in that SMS text, do not use that phone number. These guys will buy, phone numbers, and you can call them and they'll answer the phone, First Bank, and they'll act like they're the bank. Go give me your account number. Oh, okay, yeah, I've looked you up, Mr. Johnson. Yep, that's the correct account number. Now what's your PIN? And then all of a sudden you've given them everything they need. So anyway, these are not made up stories. So should be obvious. Maintain physical control of your device. There are devices out there that can bypass some of this stuff. Disable Bluetooth when you're not using it. There are lots of Bluetooth holes in with security, but thankfully they have to be really close to you. But this is just something that is a very very good best practice. Backups. This is super critical, especially at home. You guys would be just appalled at some of the stories I have about some retirees that they didn't back up their data, and that one of them retiree had a Bitcoin wallet, and that Bitcoin wallet was gone. And without that wallet, without those codes, without those password strings, that Bitcoin is just forever gone. So anyway, back up your critical data. Okay, this is something again, you can you don't have to be overly technical to go to Best Buy and buy one of their little drives that you just plug into the USB, and it will walk you through backing some things up. But from a professional standpoint, create a backup plan that produces multiple backups over time. Test your backups, have an offsite or air gap for your backups. So have like this, you guys, my camera may not be on, but I have a drive in my hand that I'm taking to my safe at the house today, because you have to have an air gap, because if you leave your backups attached to your computer, if someone gets into your computer, they can access those backups and actually encrypt them. So this last year, a company, this cost them over $1 million because they were hit with ransomware. Totally lost all servers, workstations, everything, totally encrypted. They weren't overly worried at first because they had backups. And then they realized that all the backups had been penetrated and encrypted. So they had to basically rebuild everything. And I think it was like 1.6 million that it took them. They lost customers. I mean, it was just a nightmare. And they had a lot of the right things going on. They had endpoint protection. They had all these things, but they didn't have anybody watching it. So they didn't have anybody appropriately responding as quickly as they should have. So anyway, it's important to have backups. And if you can, get your backups scanned. So I scan my backups once I make them, and then I put them in a remote location. All right, this one, near and dear to my heart. I'm a firm believer of holistically approaching cybersecurity. So educate your people, set up IT cybersecurity practices and policies for your employees. This isn't hard at all. Okay. Train your employees to establish an initial cybersecurity standard. Again, you can find YouTubes for this. Keep security fresh for your employees. I recommend at least monthly having a 10-minute video, and then because then it's in their awareness. It hasn't been long enough for them to forget because they're doing their job, right? They're doing their production. But this keeps it on their mind. And then test your employees. So one of the services that we provide is cybersecurity education, that we basically design a curriculum for our customers, and their employees watch a video, they take a test, we get those numbers back of who did it, what their grades were, and then we also test them in regards to phishing. So we can perform phishing tests and simulate actual attacks. And then we can tell you how they performed against those. So, not everyone may necessarily need to do something like this as far as our services go, but there are things on YouTube. You can Google this and you can do some of this stuff yourself. Again, I'm trying to make sure that, globally, we're safe. I'm not trying to push anything. Some case studies. Not sure if you guys are interested, but I have this is C, by the way. These are two case studies from 2022. There's a $30-40 million company. They're PCI compliant. Basically, that means that they're payment card industry compliant. They get audited. They get assessed by the PCI assessors. They spend over $200,000 a year on IT security. There was one server that was not patched, and these bad actors found it. And again, this is through a script attack. They lost no data, so they were able to catch it pretty quickly. But what happened was they were under contractual obligation to their business partners that they had to let them know that they had an attempted breach. There was no breach because no data was exposed. Well, their business associates, their processes are to immediately sever connection until you can prove that you're clean. So it costs these guys 30 days of revenue, which equated to be about $700,000, simply because, they were doing the right things. They caught it really quickly. All these things went right, but unfortunately, everybody's knee jerk, was like, oh, we got to unplug. So anyway, so these are just object lessons, I guess you could say. Then there's the medical clinic. They had 4 physicians, basic antivirus. They were penetrated because of a malware link. The bad actor was on their network. We found traces for 200 days. They executed ransomware and they encrypted everything. The bad actor requested $500,000. they didn't pay, and they went out of business. They filed for bankruptcy and went out of business. So these are things that happen to small and medium-sized businesses that are absolutely avoidable up to a point. You can never be 100% protected. What you can do is do your very best to, intentionally defend yourself. So, anyway, let's see. Again, that's the end of everything I have for you. If you have any questions, I'm happy to field them. I do have a few questions for you guys if you don't have any for me.
I have a question. What's the best practice on frequency? Like, so you have some applications that prompt you, you have to change the password every 90 days or whatever. But some of our applications we use don't. And so what would you say the best practice is on having employees change their passwords?
So 90 days is a fairly standard requirement for most compliances. So anytime you're dealing with, HIPAA type of data or insurance or financial services, most of them, it's 90 days at a minimum. From my opinion, though, it really depends on the risk of your data. So if you have super high value data that's on your network that your employees, if all of them have access to it, you need to redesign your network. Okay. But if you have some folks that have 100% access to, this $10 million bit of data, I would change them more often, 30 days, perhaps. But a good rule of thumb is the 90. Some of the compliances as of 2024 are going to 60 days, but some of the research has proven that changing your password more often that isn't necessarily better, because people start writing these things down because they can't remember them, or they use a password save. And I don't know if you guys saw in the news, and I didn't mention this earlier, but bottom left there, it said LastPass. That LastPass you'll ever need, that's a password safe. They got hacked in December. So you got to be careful with those guys too. But to answer your question, it really depends on the value of the data. But from an industry perspective, 90 days is fairly standard. 60 is coming. But the research I was mentioning, if you have let's say a 16-digit passphrase that is alphanumeric, and you only use it on that one system, it's very, very, very unlikely that account is going to be penetrated. Okay. So, does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you.
Cool. Yep. Let's see. Any others? I know we're a small, intimate group. Okay. So real quick, and I was hoping we'd have a few more of us for this, but can you rate your perceived cyber threat risk from 1 to 10, 10 being the highest? Just put it in the chat if you don't mind. Just type a number 1 to 10, the perceived cyber threat risk. I normally ask this before I do the presentation, but yeah, some of us were listening. Get extra points, Kevin. So, generally, the responses I receive are normally between 7 to 10. And that's just because, it's real. And okay, so here's another question. And this is something you don't need to put into the chat, but I want you to think about this. What do you think the business cybersecurity risk is to your business right now? What's the greatest risk to your business? And you don't have to tell me, you don't have to write it down, but I want you to think about it. And then I want you to think about, what are you doing? Are you being intentional about whatever that gap is you're thinking about? And again, not trying to sell you anything. What I really want you to do is be safe and whole. Let's see. I think that's everything I had. If there are no other questions. But I also would like some feedback. If you feel, so inclined, I would love some feedback on how to make this better, faster, stronger. So
I would say the biggest problem that I have is, this is gonna sound funny, but so I'm a tech recruiter, right? So I work for a small firm that's out of Seattle, but we have a pretty good presence in Longview now. We have 3 recruiters in Longview, and the biggest challenge for me is to avoid, because we do a lot of email outreach and a lot of engagement through LinkedIn and stuff, is to avoid being perceived as a threat by Google and Microsoft and all that, and getting flagged. And so that's been the biggest. On our end, the only data we have is publicly available data that's scraped off of LinkedIn. And if someone wanted to get salary information and stuff like that, but we don't have sensitive financial data and stuff. But I think that's the biggest challenge for us is to keep our domain health healthy, and email best practices that we can still engage with candidates without being shoot off into spam folders and being perceived as a threat, because we don't want to do that, because that damages our reputation as well. So that's
Right.
our challenge right now. So
I can tell you from a marketing perspective, I've worked with email marketers in the past. There are definitely some things that you can do that will help you stay off those blacklists. And I'll take a note. Let me see if I can find a few things for you. I think we should have your email. And if I can find these white papers I have, I'll shoot them over to you, because they're pretty helpful.
yeah, for sure.
But
I've done a lot of research on my own, but I'm always finding out new things, and then Google is always changing their algorithm, and so it's trying to, frequency of sending and volume and all that stuff, and trying to make sure that you don't trip anything. And like I said, just in general, we don't want to look like we're spammers, because we're not. And so
Right.
but it's easy to get lumped in that category. So
Well, yeah, like I said, there's some good information out there, and I do have a couple white papers on it that are from Nova.
appreciate it.
Okay. Well, thanks. I appreciate you guys attending. I hope you learned something. And if you ever need anything cybersecurity related, please reach out. I'm happy to help. I will come out and speak to any organization at any time for free, just because we have a passion for protection. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. It's been great.
Yep.
If y'all
Deborah,
have,
did I put you?
Oh, I was just going to say, if
Go
anyone
ahead.
wants the slides and stuff, just let me know, and I can get John to pass them on, and I'll give them to you. I have everybody's emails. So
Thank you.
All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Enjoyed it.